Welcome back, everybody. It's a Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast on Fantasy Pros. I'm your host, Scott Bogman. Follow me on the Twitter at Bogman Sports. I'm joined, as always, by Pat Fitzmaurice at Fitz_FF on the Twitter machine. And today, we're going to be talking about some Dynasty ADPs, risers and fallers. We're going to get a little discussion in terms of trades on the back end as well. But Fitzy, how's the offseason treating you, man? Are you doing well?
Pretty well, Boggs. Yeah, I'm not used to reacting to NFL news. And then this morning, as we record this, Dalvin Cook apparently got word that he's going to be released. Maybe not officially released. So that'll be interesting. See where he lands. See what it does for Alexander Madison's stock. I wonder if he'll bump up into mid-range running back 2 for...
We'll be talking about him pretty soon. We know that because he's going to bump way up.
Yeah, man. And, I think I still have a share of Kenneth Walker in one dynasty league. So, maybe
Ty Chandler, come on.
Maybe my ship is going to come. You think it's going to be Chandler? Who, if you had to throw one chip down on Chandler, Wongwu, or McBride, the rookie?
Chandler for me.
Chandler.
I like him a lot coming out of UNC last year. I was upset that he went to Minnesota because I was like, well, Cook's going to be gone next year, but they're just going to put Madison in, so Chandler's still going to be behind. But Nguanu was drafted by the previous regime. That's why, but he's a great special teamer. So sticking on the team, I think he'll stay, but I don't know, man. I think Ty Chandler's a much better runner. And then, like you said, they took McBride. So it's hard to know who's going to make it.
It's interesting, man. It's going to make Vikings preseason games kind of interesting. Yeah. And Wongwu, I know it was the previous regime. I know it's mostly been special teams contributions. But the few times that dude has gotten the ball, it looks like he's been shot out of a cannon. That dude has got some speed.
He's fast. Yeah, he's got some zip for sure. And he was behind, David Montgomery at Iowa State. So, tough to get on the field with a guy like that in front of you for sure. So a lot of good performance here. And like you said, it seems like the Vikings have some stuff too, because I heard Danielle Hunter might be on the move as well. So, but look, we'd rather have release news than injury news. No injury news yet. Not anything huge, at least on the offensive side. So we like that. But like I said, today we're going to talk about some risers and fallers. So let's start with the risers. And we wanted to take a look from the overall superflex rankings, right? So just tell me where you got the numbers, Fitz, so we know the source of them here.
Yeah, we are getting this from our friends at DLF, Dynasty League Football, Ryan McDowell, Eric Dickens and friends. Great guys, good websites. And they track startup Dynasty ADP, both in one quarterback leagues and Superflex. For the purposes of this show, we're going to be using Superflex, and we're mostly looking at changes from February of 2023 to June of 2023. So basically what the offseason has wrought as far as changes to the market.
All right, so let's take a look at the first riser here, Garrett Wilson, who turns 23 in July, 24.5 was his ADP overall in February, down to 16.6 in June. 17th overall is his ECR, and 6th among wide receivers. He's just behind CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, just above Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, Tyreek Hill. This is all Aaron Rodgers, right, Fitz? I mean, Aaron Rodgers officially being moved to the Jets should improve. That's the old, raising tide raises all ships, or however it said, raising water raises all ships out, whatever the cliche I'm butchering here is, but that should be all receiving options for the Jets, correct?
Rising tide lifts all boats, buddy.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes. Thank you.
I do think this is the Aaron Rodgers effect. And the funny thing is, Garrett Wilson, after what he showed us last year, I think should have been considered a foundational dynasty piece anyway. 24 was probably too low for him in the February startup ADP. Don't you think 16 is pretty reasonable if you were drafting it from the 109 in a startup? Are you feeling pretty good about getting Garrett Wilson in the second round?
Yes. My rankings are a little different just because I'm so QB heavy in a super flex. But yeah, this is the range where he needs to go, right? And I have him a little lower in the overall because I have some ancients ahead of him. I do have Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs. ahead of him, even though he's 7 years younger than them. Just because those guys have done it for multiple seasons, right? And I'm, me, I'm a win now guy. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely the range of wide receivers you will be picking him out of, for sure.
And I mean, I think, Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill are probably going to put up better 2023 numbers than Garrett Wilson will, but I don't know if they're going to be that much better, Boggs. And, he has got a long runway for his career right now. It's all in front of him. Really excited about what we've seen so far. So 109, if you start me with Trevor Lawrence, one of the guys toward the bottom of that elite QB range. And then, now I'm left in the second round to go at another position, since the value kind of tends not to be there early in the second round of superflex dynasty startups. And Garrett Wilson would be a guy I'd be happy to hang my hat on.
Yeah, and, just looking at the numbers from last year, you expect everything to come up. 83 catches, 1,103 yards, and 4 touchdowns, and that's on 147 targets in 12 starts. He didn't start the first 5 games, I believe, of his career. So, and that was with the likes of Zach Wilson and Mike White and all those guys. So we expect him to perform better with Aaron Rodgers, who could throw it in the teacup. We like that. Devonta Smith, second guy on this list here, Fitzy, turning 24 this season. 41.6 was his overall ADP in Superflex drafts in February, down to 35.4 in June. It was 57 in December. So this guy has seen a steady climb all the way through the offseason. Devonta Smith is just behind in ECR, 31st overall, 12th among wide receivers, just behind Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Stephon Diggs, just ahead of Drake London, DK Metcalf, and Cooper Kupp. This one to me, it's weird that Devonta Smith rises. There is not a corresponding move that this is a reaction to. I mean, last year played in 17 games, 104 targets, 136 targets, 95 catches, 1,196 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I mean, I think that's a pretty good baseline. If that's what you want to, I don't know if we can expect much improvement, but that's a great line. So yes, a little bit behind Garrett Wilson. He is the number 2 behind AJ Brown on his own team, but Swift is gone. They're probably going to tailor back Hurts running a little more. So a couple more passes. So maybe a slight improvement, but I think this is what you want to expect from Devonta, correct?
Yeah, does 35 seem about right to you, Boggs? Because for me, maybe the situation isn't ideal with him being the number 2 wide receiver, technically, behind AJ Brown, although I don't think it's necessarily a huge gap between the two of them. And the fact that the Eagles are kind of a running team. They're certainly not going to be thrust into many situations this year where they're going to have to play catch up, where they fall deep into holes. I mean, this team is stacked offensively and defensively. But man, Devonta Smith is just so good, man. I mean, this guy moves differently than most of the guys in the NFL, and
Heisman winner.
Yeah, he is a guy that if I were an NFL cornerback, if I knew I was going to be facing this guy, I would not sleep well that week, because this guy is tough to hang with, man.
The Slim Reaper, that's what they call him, man. And I mean, he definitely deserves it. 19th in receiving grade on PFF, 9th in yards after catch, 34th in yards per route run. 142nd in ADOT is pretty substantial, because he's catching those short passes and then going with them. That's why his yak numbers are so high as well. So a guy that, doesn't have to rely on getting deep for production. He does the production himself. So kind of doesn't really matter what kind of quarterback you have, as long as the ball is coming at him, and it will be. They didn't add any help in the draft at that position. Didn't go after, it doesn't seem like they're going after Hopkins. Doesn't seem like they're pulling in a new name or anything. So I think we could expect more with, a reasonable ticks up for him this season. Before we go to the next player, I got to tell you guys about Reality Sports Online. And by now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go see what all the buzz in the dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Think it sounds complicated? It is not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is a platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test out your general manager skills for free, FREE in a mock. If you like what you see, use the promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. All right, Fitzy, the third player that we have up is Tony Pollard. Obviously getting the big bump from the Cowboys not making a giant splash in the draft. They didn't go out in free agency and sign anybody else yet right now. So it's Tony Pollard and then Malik Davis as his backup. He's risen from 71.1 in February to 56.4 in June, but his ECR is way higher than both those. 30th overall, 10th among RBs, just behind Etienne, Jacobs, and Walker, just ahead of Eckler, Najee, and Stevenson. This dude was 4th in run grade last year, 2nd in yak, 15th in missed tackles forced, 5th in breakaway yards, 8th in receiving grade among running backs. Tony Pollard is a talented back. The only question we have about him moving forward, I feel like, Fitz, is can he handle the workload all by himself? Because we haven't seen him do it.
Yeah, so Pollard has never had 200 carries in a season. And he's never had even 40 catches in a season. So I'm a little worried about it. Like, I don't think I would be comfortable investing at him at this price. Like, I've got him in, my most important dynasty league. I've got Pollard, but the startup for that was in 2020, and I got Pollard like in the low 100s. Like that was maybe in the double-digit rounds, the 9th round, something like that. I'm worried that they're going to add someone else. I think that's a possibility, that they re-sign Zeke or bring in Leonard Fournette or sign Kareem Hunt or someone like that. And
I think they should, to be honest. I don't want Malik Davis being my second RB.
Yeah, and Bugs, you and I were talking about this backstage before the show in terms of Najee Harris versus Jaylen Warren, and how our boy Derek Brown, D-Bro, likes to talk up Jaylen Warren and thinks he might be better than Najee. But we were talking about how Najee is like the starting pitcher who has to pace himself and throw 100 pitches. Whereas, it's different with the relief back, Jaylen Warren, who can come in with his hair on fire and, throw 100 miles an hour for 18 pitches. Mixing my sports metaphors here, obviously, but I just wonder if Pollard does get a bump in workload, if he's still going to average above 5 yards per carry. His career average is 5.1. If he's still going to be so efficient as a pass catcher. I think with the increased workload, we'd see a little bit of a dip in efficiency. And, obviously it ramps up the risk for injury.
Yeah, it's interesting with Pollard because, in a startup draft, he's tougher to draft than some other guys that we've just seen do it before, because it's really, you're buying him at cost, and it's you're hoping for upside, you're expecting upside. So I don't know. I think you're right. I think the ECR is a little rich for my taste. I think I like the ADP a little more, get him in the 50s instead of around 30. So, but I have him very high among running backs as well.
Yeah, I mean, no question I like the guy, but it's like, just because a guy is really good, limited sample size doesn't automatically mean that he's going to be great with a big sample size. And, that's my hang up here.
I'm with you on it. The next guy up, Calvin Ridley, who's turning 28 this year, obviously coming off the big suspension. 94.5 in February, up to 83.3 in June. He's 78 in ECR overall, the 37th wide receiver off the board, just behind Zay Flowers, Christian Kirk, Amari Cooper, just above Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, and Mike Williams. So I've talked about Calvin Ridley a lot. Super talented guy. I do question his love for football a little bit, just because of the issues that he had with the Falcons and then the suspension, which it probably was a little overboard, but I also agree that the only thing that can ruin the NFL is gambling. So they got to nip these things in the bud when they happen. So you got to make an example. Unfortunately for him, he was the first guy to get popped and made a big example of. So I don't know what to expect in Jacksonville, Fitz. I mean, they still have Christian Kirk. Zay Jones was great last year. Evan Ingram was awesome among tight ends, and Travis Etienne is expected to see more, pass attempts this year. And then you drop Calvin Ridley into it. So I think for me, it's like, well, look, Trevor Lawrence is going to get way better this year, but I don't know if anybody surrounding him is. So I question Ridley moving up the board a decent amount here.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a late 7th round startup ADP in superflex leagues, and like, I don't think it's that egregiously high, but I think I may be a little more put off by his aggressive ADP and redraft this year. Like, I'm with you, Boggs. I mean, I do wonder about his commitment to football. We saw Deshaun Watson come back after a long layoff last year and have layers upon layers of rust. And maybe it's different for a quarterback who has more to process than a wide receiver. Sure. But like, I don't know that Calvin Ridley automatically goes back to the guy he was in Atlanta. Like, I don't think that's a safe assumption. And he's 28. So it's like, he doesn't have that much more time before he's starting to hit the age cliff, or at least the point where a significant drop-off becomes something, that wouldn't shock us. So I don't even know if he's their wide receiver one. I mean, Kirk.
That's the thing. Kirk could easily be the one. Yeah. And I wouldn't be shocked. And Zay was awesome. Zay was so much better than people give him credit for. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and they drafted Parker Washington and drafted Brenton Strange. Like, so Trevor Lawrence is the guy getting the boost here. I don't know if Calvin Ridley should be getting this boost that he seems to be receiving. So I think I'm with you on that one. Anything else on Ridley?
No.
Let's go to Jordan Love then. This is an exciting one. 24 years old, 174.9 ADP in February, up to 98.1 in June, obviously in a super flex, knowing that A-Rod is gone and that he is going to get he's going to get a crack at the starting job for Green Bay and see if he can do it. Just ahead of, or just behind Aaron Rodgers, Trey Lance, Derek Carr, just above Mac Jones, Will Levis, Matthew Stafford. I feel like people are fairly reserved in what to expect from Jordan Love. I mean, a starting quarterback going around pick 100 is very low. So I know you have earwormed me a little bit on Jordan Love with your Packers fandom of him and, you not liking him as much as other people do. So I accept that, but it's, we were talking about this off air a little bit too, Fitz. There's a difference between facing San Diego Aztecs at Utah State versus the Chicago Bears. Even when they're bad, they're still way better than San Diego State. So, it's a big jump. Luckily, he's had some time to sit back, but what we've seen from him so far has been thoroughly unimpressive. So, I don't know. There's a lot of upside here, but he is definitely a gigantic risk.
Yeah, the one start that we saw in 2021 when Aaron Rodgers had COVID, when Jordan Love had to make a start down in Kansas City, not very good. He was under some duress in that game. He was getting pressured a lot, but, he just didn't look good in a game where the Packers defense actually kind of stifled Patrick Mahomes, and it would have just taken like a couple of first downs in a row, keep a drive going and kick a few field goals, and they could have won that game. But better last year when he came in relief of Aaron Rodgers in a blowout loss to the Eagles. Granted, I think the Eagles were playing sort of softer coverage late in that game. I really don't have an issue with this price, though. I mean, like, for a young quarterback with some mobility, I don't think he's really a true Konami quarterback, but he's going to add a little bit of value to be added with his legs for sure.
I would say he's probably as athletic as Daniel Jones, and we just saw Daniel Jones put up 700. Yeah. So like, I think it's there, but you have to design stuff for him and stuff. So I don't know, he's probably more of a 400, 500 rushing yard guy than a 700 if he starts all the games.
Yeah. Like the only issue, like, if there had not been that long gap between the Packers drafting him, and I mean, like, he has sat on the bench for 3 years.
Yeah.
If this was just one where he sat on the bench for 1 year, and the Packers were probably going to make a big commitment to him, give him at least like 2 years to prove himself, I'd feel a little bit better about this price, and this price would probably be of value. But the thing is, Boggs, if he face plants this year, like, I think it would be
a lot of QBs in this class.
A lot of QBs, and if he face plants, the Packers are going to be picking really early in next year's draft. So it could easily be Drake May quarterbacking the Packers in 2024.
Caleb Williams, Quinn Ewers. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of good QBs in this class. Bo Nix, so it's gonna be deeper than it was this year, for sure. Before we go to the next player, let me just stop real quick and tell you guys how to get ahead of the competition. Do that with our 2023 Dynasty Draft Kit at fantasypros.com/dynasty with expert rankings, trade advice, combine coverage, Dynasty rookie profiles, position primers, and much more. You'll have everything you need to dominate your draft for free. Upgrading to premium unlocks even more draft strategy content in our draft kit, along with access to our Discord, which allows you to directly interact with our analyst. Fitz and I are on there every single Friday at 5. Unlock the secrets to crushing your Dynasty draft with our Dynasty Draft Kit today at fantasypros.com/dynasty. Next player up here on the list, Fitzy, after Jordan Love, we go to Isiah Pacheco, who is getting a big bump. 118.6 in February, up to 106 in June. His ECR even higher than that. Top 100 player at 94 and 26 among running backs, just behind Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, just ahead of Zach Charbonnet, David Montgomery, and Devin Achane. This guy, Pacheco, to me, Fitz, is tough. He's a piece of the best offense in the league, so you definitely want him. In terms of running, I would say he's somewhat normal. Guy was 31st in yards per route run, 45th in elusive rating, 43rd in run grade. Like, he's somewhat middle of the pack, but he's holding down the job for the best offense in the league right now in Kansas City. And, look, the danger here is you have a big injury like James Robinson. You go from being one of the top young players in the league to what is James Robinson now? He's a backup in New England and a guy that is, most people feel like, will get cut before the season started. So, obviously Pacheco hasn't had that injury. He has room to grow. I do like him as a player. I think I'm higher on him among running backs than most people are. What are your thoughts on Pacheco in dynasty leagues?
I'm mostly okay with this ADP. I would say, Boggs, if I had to self-scout myself, one of my biggest weaknesses in fantasy football is that I tend to fall too hard for the running backs who run hard, but aren't necessarily super elusive. So Isiah Pacheco is like a honey trap for me. A guy like that who just runs with his freaking
I bet you
hair
got
on
duped by
fire.
Kenneth Dixon too, didn't you?
Oh yeah, man. And of course everyone loves the guy like Kenneth Dixon who runs behind a terrible offensive line in college and is like, oh man, just wait till he gets a good offensive line.
Look at him muscle through.
Yes. So
many fumbles.
Yeah, boy, that's funny, Boggs. I did have a weakness for Kenneth Dixon. So,
Same.
And maybe I feel like I'm going down that same wormhole with Dameon Pierce a little bit.
Dude, that's the next guy I was going to mention. Pierce is the same example of one of those guys. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
A guy that runs hard, but,
I'd like to see a little more wiggle. I don't want to see Isiah Pacheco get Chris Carson out of the league where he just does not avoid hits enough. And I worry about that. But at the same time, I could see Isiah Pacheco scoring 12 touchdowns this year for the Chiefs. I mean, he's got the potential. It's not
hard to squint and see that, right?
No, right.
So, what do you think about the guys going around him? You taking him over Dalvin Cook?
At this point, probably, yeah. I think Cook's best years are probably behind him.
What about Jones and Mixon?
Over Mixon, yeah. I feel like Mixon is just not as fast as he used to be. Aaron Jones, boy, that's a tough one. I think I'd rather have Aaron Jones is really good, man. If he can just...
I've got all three of them ahead of him. I actually have him at 28th among RBs. Not in his ECR is 26, so I'm a little lower on him. I probably, you know what, actually I'll probably have him at 27 in my next update at least. But yeah, I think I'm in the same range. And look, you draft Pacheco you're not expecting a big breakout. I don't think. You just want a decent amount of yards and the scores. That's what you want from Pacheco. And I think you're pretty safe in getting that as of right now because they didn't sign anyone. They didn't draft anyone. And that I feel like that is obviously a big reason of why his ADP has moved up is because they didn't draft competition or a replacement for him in the offseason. So, yeah, I'm still in on Pacheco, but I think he's going at fair market value right now. Don't you think?
I think so. But yeah, he is one of the more difficult players to assess for Dynasty.
Our last riser that we have, then we have a couple more fallers than we have risers. But Samaje Perine, 221.9 in February up to 196.8 in June. His ECR is higher than that, 165. He's the 50th running back off the board. This is right now the Javonte handcuff, and that is kind of, I feel like what he should be drafted at, although I do think he proved last season that he is better than just a handcuff, right? Pirine is, but Javonte has a chance to be an absolute stud. We expect him to be back early in the year, if not at the beginning of the season. So, you know, he's a little handcuffy, and I don't know if you saw Fitz, but the rumors, you know, about before they release Cook, if they do try to trade him, that Denver and Miami were both talking to the Vikings. So, you know, if the Broncos went out and got Dalvin Cook, well, now Pirine is third by a wide margin. Now it's, you know, Cook is holding it down until Javonte comes back, and then they probably split. So, you know, Pirine is just not, he's not safe from getting washed out of any role. And I think that's my issue with wanting to draft him really at all.
Yeah, I don't need to add too much to what you said, Boggs. That's a good way to sum it up. I mean, Pirine is a capable plotter who could potentially have a pretty fantasy relevant role in 2023. And I mean, that is probably the best way to play running backs in Dynasty short term. You know, maybe you've got a couple of young guys you like and want to hold on to and see if they hatch into, you know, running back ones. But for the most part, like, play it for the short term in the here and now. So, you know, like, I don't think he's a guy who should be drafted early in a startup, but like, he could be valuable this year, especially if you're in win now mode.
Yeah, obviously, everything. He's a conditional player because it depends on what your roster looks like, right? Like, I think most obvious is he's still a Javonte handcuff. But would you rather have him or like Tank Bigsby, who's going in the same range?
I mean, it totally depends on, like, if I'm in win now mode, I would rather have Pirine if I'm rebuilding Bigsby. And like, that's a thing, Bugs. Like, we have seen Sean Payton backs. I mean, obviously there's Alvin Kamara, and we know Samaje Perine is not going to be Alvin Kamara. But like, if Javonte has to open the season on PUP after a multi-ligament knee injury, like, man, for September and October, Perine he could potentially be a running back one.
He could be. Yeah, he really could be. So it's just difficult to know right now. I think I'd rather have Bigsby in most scenarios just because there's more shelf life there and a chance. But I mean, this is where you get where Bigsby could be nothing. I mean, Dearness Johnson could easily take that second role and he could be pushed to the back of the line. And you know, same thing could happen for Pirine, like we said, with Dalvin Cook. So it's kind of conditional. I think, you know, the best spot to have Pirine is to also roster Javonte. You know, so you have the starting running back for the Broncos most likely when the season opens, but there's nothing keeping them from signing Zeke or Fournette or Hunt or going and getting Dalvin Cook, like you said. So there's still meat on the bone. Let's talk some fallers here, Fitzy, and let's start with the first one. You know, we're going in reverse order of ADP here, and I was surprised to see this at 17 in February, down to 20.3 in June. Not a huge drop, but for these top players, 3 spots is big. Jonathan Taylor has dropped. His ECR is 8th overall and 2nd among running backs, Fitzy. He's behind only Bijan in ECR for running backs and above Brees, CMC, and Barkley. I know it was an injury-plagued season last year, but I really don't understand the falling of Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, so back late last year for, whatever dynasty leagues were doing startups during the season, back in November, according to DLF, his ADP was 8.9. So he was like a foundational first-round player. I just think it's a slight overreaction to last year. Misses 5 games, or maybe it was 6 games due to injury, and then wasn't as effective. We know the Colts line was really disappointing. I think we thought the Colts had one of the better offensive lines in the league, and it kind of sucked last year, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan just completely fell apart, hit the wall. So I'm optimistic that Taylor comes back. I mean, here's a dude who ran for 1,800 yards in 2021, a guy who in his first 32 games scored 32 touchdowns. Taylor's great, man. Big, fast, powerful, vision, patience, quick feet, everything you would want. I don't know if he's going to be a prolific pass catcher, especially with a mobile quarterback like Anthony Richardson, who if he gets in trouble is probably just going to run himself rather than dump it off to a back. But I do think Anthony Richardson is really going to pump up Taylor's rushing efficiency, because we know that when you have to watch for a quarterback as big and as fast as Richardson, you got to make sure he hands off the ball before you start sprinting at the running back to, fill a gap and make a tackle. Like, you have to wait that extra split second, man. I mean, we saw that back in the day when Robert Griffin III had his crazy rookie year, and Alfred Morris averaged like 5.6 yards a carry that year and was just a monster. So
hitting a lot of homers. I remember that.
Yeah, man. Like it definitely helped. Ask Miles Sanders last year with Jalen Hurts playing quarterback. I mean, Miles Sanders was super efficient as a runner. So
Saquon too. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Daniel Jones and Saquon. And Saquon caught 56 passes. Now, his rookie season he got 91. So we get it. Definitely comes down with a rushing quarterback. But like you said, it makes the running lanes more open and efficient for him, and he's a strong. I have him at 6 overall in Superflex. I do not understand him falling to the second round. If I'm in a draft, I don't care if it's Superflex, he can fall in the second round. So that's not going to happen. I'll take my QB in the second round before I push Taylor down that far. I mean, I guess maybe in a 16-man, I really want the QBs, but in your standard 12-man, I don't understand it at all.
Can you imagine getting like Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields or Justin Herbert in the first round and then coming back with JT in the mid-second?
I mean, it's more likely to do it in reverse on my rankings. You know what I mean? Like, you take Taylor first and then get one of those QBs. So, I do not understand Taylor falling at all. He ain't going to fall on my boards. You can tell from what Fitz says, he's not going to fall on his board either. One of the top 5 running backs in the NFL. So, and I know they don't last as long, but it also makes them harder to find and harder to keep. So, you have a good one with Taylor. Understand that if you're drafting him, and don't let him fall that far. Another faller here, not a surprise at all. Kyler Murray, 26 years old, 21.3 in February, down to 28.6 in June. His ECR, though, is 37th overall, 10th among QBs. He's just behind Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Deshaun Watson, just above Dak Prescott, Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young. So, look, I still like Kyler Murray as a player. I still think he's a great player, and I have him, I believe, at 10. And I have him like a spot ahead of Richardson, although I don't know if I would do that according to ADP. But I don't know, man. Obviously, this is all coming off his injury, but to me, it's not just that. It's the injury plus Cliff Kingsbury's gone, who was the pass-heavy, air raid offense that he brought from Texas Tech with him. I would assume the offense is going to get slower paced under Gannon because he's a defensive-minded head coach, and that, they're going to want to run the ball and play strong defense, and that's going to be the foundation of the team, a lot like it was with the Eagles. So I think the offense will change as well. So Murray is definitely sliding down boards for multiple reasons.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the loss of Cliff Kingsbury in the horizontal passing game. But otherwise, I do get it with the injury and the fact that we're going to, miss at least half the season this year. And what's Kyler Murray coming back to? There's really not much incentive to bring him back when this is so obviously a team that's tanking. But it is interesting that his ADP was 6.7 last fall. And
yeah,
like I still think the guy's good. I know that Cardinals fans, not all Cardinals fans are enamored with Kyler Murray. Like my friend's brother-in-law who like he's a season ticket holder. He can't stand Murray. I mean,
I'm from Arizona, man. I got a lot of Cardinal friends, and yeah, I mean, some people are, non-apologetic for him and say he's one of the best in the NFL, and some just hate his guts because of all this video game stuff and Call of Duty and all that crap.
Yeah, so. I mean, like I certainly don't think he's a bad quarterback, but you can make the point that he is a better fantasy quarterback than real life quarterback.
Sure.
But Boggs, he does pile up the points in fantasy, man.
And he runs. He runs. And that's also another thing that's kind of worrying me about him overall is, the knee injury affecting him running, and at least them being willing to run him because he is a smaller guy too in stature. He's not tall and he is skinny. I mean, he's a little brick for sure. If you ever seen his body, he's definitely thick, but undersized guy that runs a lot is going to get hit a lot. And he finally did break. So we'll see how long he's going to miss to start the season too. So, and it's a whole new, front office and coaching staff. So they are not Kyler Murray. This is not the group that took Kyler Murray. So, the allegiance to him may not be strong either. So we'll see. He's still a good option. I just, last year was bad, and I worry about how much that will affect him moving forward.
Yeah.
Before we get to some more, go ahead, please.
I was just final point, Boggs. If I were drafting and I was either going to be taking a win in year 2 approach or a productive struggle approach, playing the long game. If he was available for me at 28th overall, I'd be delighted to get him as my second quarterback.
And this is what I'm going through in my head right now because I do have Murray ahead. Murray or Richardson?
Oh, I'd rather have Richardson.
Yeah, I would rather. I think I'm going to make that move too.
I mean, just just the size and the physical. The guys just could be Superman.
It's the ceiling. You're taking the ceiling, and hopefully that's your second QB too. Like I can say if it's a first QB, I might take Murray just because he is good and we know. But I don't know, man. That upside for Richardson is pretty good. So I think I might end up taking that.
It would be funny, Boggs, if the Cardinals tank works. They're positioned to go number 1, pick Caleb Williams, and then this is the same team that threw Josh Rosen overboard for Kyler, and they'd be throwing Kyler. At least
Kyler will go and get signed though.
Oh
he'll get signed and go and start immediately somewhere.
Right.
So that was not the case with Josh Rosen. Who, man, I was invested in Josh Rosen, and that did not work out. Before we move on to some more followers, subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Comment below on this video because when you do, you could win a free FREE upgrade to Fantasy Pros Premium. Whether you're looking for custom mock drafts, salary cap tools, or in-depth analysis of your fantasy performance, Fantasy Pros Premium has the tools to help you win. Unlock the most powerful fantasy tools in the industry today. Don't want to wait for the giveaway. Sign up today at fantasypros.com/premium and start playing smarter, not harder. All right, the next follower here, another guy that I don't like is falling, but I understand it. Kenneth Walker, who just turned 22 years old, rookie last year. 25.5 was his ADP in February, down to 37.9 in June. His ECR is 29. He is 9th among running backs, going just below Gibbs, Etienne, and Jacobs, just above Pollard, Eckler, and Najee. So obviously the reason why Walker is taking a dip here, Fitzy, is because of Charbonnet, but I feel like both these guys can work. And I guess I'm not surprised that Walker is falling. I'm just kind of disappointed that he's falling this far. So what do you think about Walker, and do you think the drop is correct?
I do think it's correct, and I don't think I'd be comfortable taking him in the top 40. Like I'd be nervous about a Rashad Penny situation where the Seahawks spent a first-round pick on Rashad Penny, and then they felt Chris Carson was better. And so, Penny was pretty much a backup for a while. And just the fact that Pete Carroll, more than any other coach, I think, runs a true meritocracy with his roster.
Yeah.
And, like, that's not to say Walker isn't good. I do think Walker's good, but I also think Charbonnet's good. What if Carroll decides Charbonnet is better?
Yeah, I mean, that's in the realm of possibility because Charbonnet is good. I just don't think that he's better than Kenneth Walker. And he's bigger, so that could be the biggest detriment to Walker is that if Charbonnet gets those goal line carries. But Walker in his rookie season, 13th in run grade, 13th in yak, 10th in missed tackles forced, 2nd in breakaway yard total, 37th in receiving grade for a guy that did not catch the ball in college because of that terrible, Brian Lewerke and company QBs there, and 19th in elusive rating as a rookie as well. I just think Walker has already proved that he is a solid back in the NFL, a good, maybe not great yet, but he has that potential. I still think he's better than Charbonnet. I also think Charbonnet is pretty good too. And we've seen Pete Carroll go run heavy. Before last year when Geno was slinging it, this team was one of the top running teams in the NFL, and I don't think they're scared to go back to that. So I just think they're going to run the ball a lot. I think there's enough meat on the bone for Walker and for Charbonnet. I think if I'm dipping something in this offense, it's Geno. Because I think Geno overperformed last year. He's already a little bit long in the tooth. And, this is a team that could easily go and snap up one of those QBs next year. Or, if the Cardinals cut Kyler, I could see him going to Seattle. Very similar, skill set to Russell. So, maybe remake a little magic that way. So, I don't know. I think this team's going to be run heavy, and I have Walker at 35 overall. So, I think he's going in the correct range here. So, that's one that Fitz and I disagree on. We found one here. I like it. The next guy up on the list here in terms of moving down, Chris Godwin, 27 years old. He's turning this year, 45 in February, down to 53 in June. His ECR is 47th overall, 19th among wide receivers, just behind Devontae, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and DJ Moore, just above Christian Watson, Michael Pittman, and Debo. Your thoughts on Godwin? Are you buying this fall? Or are you thinking the overreaction of Brady being gone is maybe a little too much?
I think it's fair. I do think we have to brace ourselves for maybe a little bit of a hit this year, although I get the feeling that Chris Godwin is going to take less of a hit than Mike Evans will with Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, if it turns out to be that. So
I like you say his name like a curse word.
Who knows, man? I mean, maybe Kyle Trask could be an upgrade over Mayfield. We don't know about that, but I think
wouldn't take a lot.
Godwin is still good, but Godwin investors might just have to wait a year for things to sort themselves out.
I think that's fair. I'll say that my initial reaction is I don't like Chris Godwin being moved because this is a guy, 4th in yak last year, 192nd in ADOT. So it's not like he was catching the ball downfield and getting all of his yards from Tom Brady's incredible arm. This is a guy that was taking short catches and doing a bunch with them. So I think he can do the same with Trask and Mayfield, whoever it is back there, but they ain't going to be Tom Brady, even Tom Brady at the end of his career. So yes, I'm on board with this one, taking a little bit of a hit, although I am higher on him than ECR and this ADP as well. Another wide receiver on the followers list here, Fitzy DJ Moore, 26 years old, 50.8 in February, down to 60 in June, 38th last December. ECR is 46th overall and 18th among wide receivers, just behind Kupp, Adams, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, above Godwin, Watson, and Pittman. Going to Chicago and playing with Justin Fields, okay. I get it that he's moving down, but DJ Moore is the best wide receiver this team has had in a while, probably since Marshall or Alshon Jeffrey or somebody. So, Moore is good, and he's immediately the best wide receiver on this team, right?
Yeah, late 5th round ADP. Sign me up for sure.
Same.
And yes, I understand a little more target competition now in Chicago and more of a run-heavy offense, but I think there is untapped passing potential for Justin Fields, and Moore's going to be his guy. there's no one else who's going to usurp him as the go-to receiver. Not Darnell Mooney, not Chase Claypool, not Cole Kmet at tight end. So, yeah, man, I think this is light, and maybe we don't see another 1,200-yard season out of DJ Moore this season. But, I'm not going to say it can't happen. I mean, this guy's really good. On if you gave me 950 yards as a over/under for Moore this year, I'd probably still tap the over on that one.
I'm with you. DJ Moore has been, rolling his eyes at negativity about him since coming into the draft. And, Steve Smith pushed for this team to take him. He was absolutely right. That's why they asked him again for Jonathan Mingo this year, your boy. And they're excited about him. So, I don't know, man. He's the number one. He's way better than Claypool. I love Darnell Mooney, and he's much better than Darnell Mooney. So, with Cole Kmet there, and I think Michael Robinson said this on NFL Network a couple weeks ago, and I completely agree with it. Justin Fields is a passer with run ability. He is not a runner with pass ability. There's a difference, right? And the difference is you probably should be moving positions if you're a runner that can pass a little. He is not that guy. He is a quarterback. So I am excited to see them let him sling it a little bit more this year and just get a little renewed confidence in that guy, because I really think the Bears offense could explode if Fields takes off, and this could be the year. So another faller here, DeAndre Swift, not a surprise, obviously being traded, but 41st in February down to 68.8 in June, 37 or 73rd overall, 20th among RBs, behind Dobbins, Henry, and White, above Sanders, Akers, and Mixon. I've kind of talked about DeAndre Swift. I still think he's a good running back. I hate that he is in Philly. And I know people like it because the offense is much better, and I get it, but you have Hurts to contend with. They sign Penny. They love Gainwell, and Boston Scott still gets carries. It's just too split up for me to have a ton of confidence in Swift moving forward. So I completely understand this and agree with this drop.
I've heard multiple Eagles beat writers speculate that they think if Rashad Penny's healthy, he's going to be the primary early down back for the Eagles this year. It seems to me like some of Swift's best games with the Lions were games where the Lions would fall into a big hole and then they would dump 12 passes in Swift's direction. That game script is not going to exist with the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, they're not going down 3 touchdowns to anyone this year.
Not unless Hurts gets injured.
Yeah.
That's the only
way. And plus, I don't think Hurts is going to be a guy who's dumping, 70 targets to any back, really. So yeah. I even have an issue with this after a 27 spot fall in a span of a few months. I don't know if it's enough, Boggs. I still wouldn't take him at 68 or whatever.
Yeah, I got him as a post 100 player. I mean, there are so many running backs I'm taking ahead of him, and look, he's still a good talent, and this could work out. Because when you're looking at all these players, I think a big thing for people is you want to look. Everybody wants a black and white answer, but it's never black and white. You got to look at the possibilities here, the gray area, as they'd say. So take a look at what the peak is he leads this team, he scores a bunch of touchdowns, he is the clear and away winner, and he stays healthy, right? That's a good offensive line. It's a good offense. They're going to score a lot of touchdowns. But, the bad side is we just invested a 4th round pick. We tried him. Rashad Penny was way better, and he finally stayed healthy. And now he's, the variance is too big for me to rely on DeAndre Swift, I feel like. And that's really the issue with him. It's not that he's not a good talent. It's not that it's within the realm of possibility for him to be a RB1. I would not be overtly shocked. I would be very surprised if that happened, but it wouldn't be the most shocking thing I've ever seen on a football field. But the reality is he's probably, a decent size of a pretty split up backfield, including the quarterback running the ball. So I am just not going to be investing this year. Let's talk about some QBs here, Fitz, before our last guy. The QBs, Trey Lance, just turning 23. 63.5 in February, down to 72.8 in June, but 25.4 last year before the season started. His ECR is actually lower than all of that, 81st overall, the 23rd QB. He's behind Pickett and Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, above Carr, Love, and Mack. Russell Wilson, the opposite here. I'm just going to combine these two. He's 34, down to 91.4 in February, down to post 100 player in superflex leagues in June. His ECR is 87, so much higher, 21st above Goff, Geno, and Pickett, behind A-Rod, Lance, and Carr, or those guys are behind him. So between Lance and Russell Wilson, Fitz, who would you rather have?
Lance. I really would. I'm worried about I'm worried about Russell Wilson losing his mobility, which I think has been the secret sauce for him throughout his career, the ability to escape the pass rush and make plays off script. Whereas Lance, like I still think Lance will get his shot. He just hasn't fully gotten his shot yet. He last year plays that rainstorm game in Chicago, then the next start he gets hurt. Like it just so happened, Purdy comes in, was pretty good against a bunch of really bad defenses, and now like sort of is being considered the incumbent. But Lance will get his shot, if not in San Francisco, somewhere else. And I can attest to this ADP being very accurate. I just got him at 73 overall in a startup, and the ADP is 72.8. So I guess I got 0.2 of a spot bargain on him. Yeah, man. Like, and this guy is a Konami code quarterback. I think like he could move the needle with his running ability, and take the OTA videos with a grain of salt. But it did look like he's kind of improved his mechanics.
I like Trey Lance still, and I am with you wholly and completely, Fitz. This guy has not gotten a fair shake yet. And it seems really, you hear the rumors that Shanahan didn't want him, but ownership did. And, his original pick was Mac Jones, and that's why he likes Brock Purdy now, and all the rumors, right? But I think it doesn't really matter what the rumors are this year or next year. Lance is going to get a shot. It may not be with the Niners, maybe with a different team, but he is going to get a shot somewhere. And I have him ahead of Russell Wilson too. I have him at 16. I have Russell Wilson at 20. So I'm actually ahead of ECR on both these guys. Because I have a little bit of a belief in Russell Wilson having a bounce back. I do think Sean Payton is going to be a big part of that. And also, there was some off the field stuff going on with Russell Wilson personally that I think is not going to be affecting him. I think last year was as bad as we're going to see from Russ before he retires. So I do expect him to get better. So maybe if I'm looking for a QB2, like you want to take both these guys as a QB3, right? So you don't have to rely on them first year. But if I'm looking at a QB2, I'd probably take Wilson just because I know he's going to start the whole year because I paid him too much. But if I'm looking for a QB3, it's upside all day, baby. Give me Trey Lance. I am absolutely with you. Yeah. And that anything on Russell?
No, just the 102 is fine. You're praying that Sean Payton can turn it around, and maybe he can. I mean, like, even if Russ has lost the mobility, Drew Brees was not the most mobile guy in the world, and things worked out pretty well with Brees when he was playing for Payton.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see what it looks like. Going to be interesting. The last guy we want to talk about here, Dalvin Cook, turning 27 this year, 53.3 in February, down to 82.4 in June. His ECR right now is 89th overall, 25th among running backs, behind Akers, Mixon, and Aaron Jones, above Pacheco, Charbonnet, and Montgomery. Obviously, he's not going to be with the Vikings, this season. 27 is kind of getting long in the tooth, especially for as many carries as he's had. I get it. I don't know. I think I'm a little more hard-headed about running backs declining and wanting to hold on to them, Fitz. But I understand it. So I think this is somewhat appropriate for Cook, especially not knowing where he's going to end up.
A guy who's always had some, injury issues too. Nothing too debilitating, and to his credit, like he, seems to bounce back pretty well from injuries, and sometimes can play through them. Good when healthy, but the thing is, Boggs, do we see him like being the guy in a backfield anymore? I mean, probably not. Like all the possible landing spots seem like committee thing. Maybe Miami would be the best thing. Maybe they would just, keep
the spot.
Mostert, Wilson, A-Chain all on the bench. if he's going to get one shot to be the guy, maybe it's Miami, but all these other possible landing spots I've seen, like Denver, Dallas, Tampa, it just doesn't seem like he would have the gig fully to himself.
Yeah, I definitely have somebody else there. All those spots that you just mentioned. Denver would be Javonte whenever he's healthy. Tampa Bay, obviously, Rashad White would be like maybe the least, and Pollard, he would be the 2 behind Pollard. There's no question about that. So, yeah, I mean, there's reason for him to be dropping, and I agree with it. I'm a little hard-headed, though. Like, if he goes to Miami, I'm going to be very excited about him because, I mean, it's going to kill your love for A-Chain. No, maybe not your love for A-Chain, but your love for his situation.
My 2023 love for A-Chain, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, that's the spot. That's the spot. And also, I think he probably might be a little bit better than Rashad White. So, like, if he goes to Tampa Bay, he'll be the leader, but it'll look a lot like Fournette and White at the end of the season where they're playing musical chairs. So, it'll be annoying wherever he goes regardless, but at least we're opening up Alexander Mattison in Minnesota. So, yeah, look, I understand his dropping, and I agree with it begrudgingly because I don't want to completely give up on him. I still do think he's a good back, but obviously, you know, he looks like he's most likely to be a 2 somewhere going into this season. So those are the risers and fallers, Fitzy. We want to talk a little bit about trades at the end here. Do you have any just like super flex specific trades? Like our boy Debro always says, draft your QBs, don't trade for them because it costs too much. Stuff like that. Do you have a couple, maybe 2 or 3 overall overarching super flex trade rules?
One would be that I think positional balance is overrated. And because in dynasty leagues, you know, these are leagues for people who like to make trades. So, like, don't get too hung up on positional balance. Like, oh, you know, I've got just the right level of, like, if you are getting a net upgrade of talent, like, I don't mind being in a talent deficit at one position as long as I'm running a surplus at another position. So that would be one of them. But what about you, Boggs? Do you have any that are?
I mean, I think the one that Debro mentions, the QBs, is so important because you just do the math. If you're in a 12-man league, you got in a super flex, that is 36 starting QBs that everybody needs. Everybody needs 3. You need your 2 starters and 1 for bye weeks. Not everybody's going to have them. So hoard is what I would say. If you're in a spot in the draft where in a rookie draft, I mean, in the future, and you look around and you say, I don't like these players, even in the startup draft too. I look around and I'm like, I'm not thoroughly impressed by my options here. Take a quarterback because, like Debro said, they're going to be worth more for you if you hoard as well. Now, to counteract that, you shouldn't be letting people stash 7, 8 QBs on the roster. Maybe have like a 5 QB maximum in your league, stuff like that. Just talk to the commissioner ahead of time so nobody hoards like crazy. But if you have the opportunity to draft a QB and trade them for something that is better than what is available on the board right now, I take that opportunity whenever I can. So I know people don't like it. It is looked down upon by the Welsh. He does not like it because I definitely fleeced him out of some pieces to trade him like Sam Darnold a couple years ago or somebody bad. But those QBs hold more value. They just hold more value than any other spot. So remember it when you're trading. Squeeze a little extra if you're trading a QB. So that's one of my trade rules. Excuse me.
Boggs, we're low on time, but let me ask you, how do you generally respond to spam traders? Do you ever bother trying to counter, or do you just generally push the reject button and
Dikembe Mutombo? If it's a spam, Dikembe. And I think the best way to beat a spam offer or a spam trader is don't be one of those guys. Instead, post to the league, I'm looking to trade X, Y, or Z, and then you get as many offers. People who are looking will send you the offers, and you get more. If you're just working with one person, you're limited to what's on their roster. So if you are looking to trade someone, make sure everyone in your league knows about it, I think is another trade rule that I have.
Yeah, I don't begrudge the spam traders. I just don't really indulge them is the problem. Like they're going to send me things. I'm like, yeah, I don't mind you spamming me as long as you don't mind getting a bunch of rejections and no counters. I think my biggest pet peeve with trading, Boggs, and this is something like if you want to be a more productive trader.
Can I guess it?
Sure.
Is it the paragraph about why the trade works for both teams?
No, I know what you're talking about. Like, I don't need this sales pitch. I
Yeah.
can figure this out for myself. I'm a big
Right.
boy. But no, it's when like it's clear that the other person has not taken the time to even look at your roster. Really, like there's one league where
this is not what I need at all.
I'm pretty loaded at running back and wide receiver, and I'm like short on quarterback, and this guy made an offer to me to try to get Sam Howell, and like I actually need Sam Howell on this team because I'm so light at quarterback. But like it's like, dude, if you would just actually look at my roster rather than just looking at it, seeing the one guy you want to make an offer on and then just throwing something at me, like I don't know. I mean, I'm into, I don't like to spend a lot of time on negotiations. So like I'll look at someone's roster and you know, like would put yourself in the person's shoes. Would they say yes to this deal?
Yeah, I mean, I get so you're absolutely correct. I get so aggravated by someone, you know, just sending out a trade and not looking at my team at all. Like, what? This doesn't. How does this help me?
Right.
This doesn't. This only helps you. Why would I do this? You know, this is not what I need. So I think that's a big part of it too. You can probably play the mental gymnastics a little bit if you just do the hard work. Like Fitz said, you look at their roster. You say, okay, this is what they need. I need this. Is there a deal? I'll look. There are players that I want to acquire, and I'll go and I'll look at who is rostering that guy. I look at their team and I go, well, there's nothing that works for us here. Like, you know, he's stacked at running back. I'm also stacked at running back. He needs wide receivers. I'm trying to get this wide out. I don't have anything to give him. So I just go, okay, that's obviously not going to work. I'll try to set my sights on someone else. Or I'll try to send it and say, you know, hey, any interest in trading X, Y, or Z instead of sending an actual offer. So, but also like, don't get your feelings hurt when someone sends you a million offers. Either you don't want to burn a bridge. You don't want to be the guy that, oh, well, this trade's ridiculous. So you counter with a terrible trade. That's just a way to build animosity. And a lot of leagues still have veto rules, which should be gotten rid of. Veto rules are, to me, Fitz, you can tell me what you think about them. I think they're over the top and ridiculous. I don't like them at all. I think if you have a commissioner that you trust, which everybody should have, then there's no need for veto rules because you get into backstabbing. And the only reason that trade should be vetoed ever is for you think it's collusion. And you know, you got to be pretty sure it is too, because that's a pretty big accusation, homie. So, you know, you can't accuse everyone of colluding, but that is the only reason that, you know, people are going to make bad trades in the NFL and make bad trades. So if they think it's right for their team, they should be able to do it. But, you know, as long as it ain't cheating. So yeah, I mean, that's what I think about. I'm in favor of the commissioner having veto power to nix anything. Like, I don't like the thing where a league can vote on a trade. I don't like it just because, you know, the first time you get a trade voted down, then now that person who had the trade voted down is going to vote down every other trade that happens. And it just gets into sniping and backstabbing and all that stuff. It should be commissioner only. You should have someone smart enough to recognize the trades and know if they're going to, because really, you know, the whole reason for vetoing is that this trade is going to completely lopside the whole league, you know, and that happens. And, you know, it's human nature. People are not above it. So you do have to have something in place for that, but it should not be other owners. It should be the commissioner, I feel like. So what we're saying here in this whole conversation, Boggs, basically that trading in dynasty leagues is like anything else in life, don't be a tool and things should go easier for you. Exactly. Don't be a pain in the keister and everything should be good. So, but that is going to wrap it up for us. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, follow us on the Twitter at Bogman Sports, at Fitz_FF. And we will see you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody.